Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Do you hear me well? Is it the sound okay? Let's wait for the feedback. Okay, so let's start. I would like to welcome you all in this online seminar organized by the Creative Classroom eTwinning Featured Group. eTwinning, as you know, supports closed schools from the very first moment of the coronavirus pandemic with online events and professional development opportunities. The same, of course, does Creative Classroom Group, which stands by eTwinners with different kind of activities. As teachers had to transform their original classrooms to virtual ones to teach remotely to schools and to students who had to stay at home, a lot of internet issues occurred. From learning and connecting using using technology in a safe way till staying safe online, identifying disinformation, a series of questions seek for an answer. How do we learn online, sharing practices and useful resources? How do we communicate online with our contacts? How do we handle with our networks and connections? Sabrina Vorbau, project officer at European Schoolnet, who works for a variety of online safety projects, is invited here today to shed light to all these questions, explaining how the global crisis of the coronavirus pandemic is showing us how to live online. So, Sabrina, welcome to the Creative Classroom Group. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good
Sabrina,
afternoon.
can you hear
I
us?
hope you can hear me. I think yes. Hi, everyone. Really nice
Yes,
to
we can
see you
hear you.
all virtually. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's very glad to be here with you, to be back with eTwinning. It's been a while, and to see so many of you. Yeah, I think it's a very difficult time at the moment, and obviously, a lot of things have changed, and yeah, online safety has become quite an important topic, even more important as it was before. So I'm very glad today to share some insights with you, some work we have been doing as part of the Better Internet for Kids project. That is also a project we run at European Schoolnet on behalf of the European Commission. We, of course, have followed different aspects over the past weeks and months, and also yeah, looked into how maybe the pandemic changed a little bit our online lives. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm a project manager at European Schoolnet. I'm part of the digital citizenship team since the past 6 years. And over these years, I've sort of specialized myself in the field of online safety, internet governance, media literacy education, hate speech, and also disinformation. And I've hyperlinked you the current projects that I'm involved in. So Better Internet for Kids. I will talk about this project today. Then the eSafety label that I'm sure many of you have heard about, because it's also connected to the eTwinning School application. Then the Selma project, which is a project that is more focusing on the topic of online hate speech and how to take a social and emotional learning approach to foster critical thinking with children and young people. And since the beginning of this year, we are also involved in a bigger research project, which is called CORE. It's a project that we are facilitating together with universities, and it is building a platform for researchers, but also for educators on children's rights in the digital age. We have just started this project, and it's a 3-year project. So yeah, the aim is to develop a platform where people can find more research and more data analysis on this topic. So I'm sure you will receive the presentation as a follow-up of this meeting, so you can all visit these project websites. I'm, of course, a friend of eTwinning. I had the pleasure to join some eTwinning events, the annual conferences, the PTWs, some virtual meetings or learning events. And I do really hope that we will be able to see each other in real life very, very soon again. If you would like to connect with me, I'm available on Twitter. I put you my Twitter handle here, so please feel free to connect with me and send me a DM if you have any questions or would like to receive any further resources. I'm happy to help here. When I received the invitation for today's presentation, and as I said, with Better Internet for Kids and the work I'm doing at European SchoolNet, we of course have looked into the topic of basically how the current pandemic has a little bit changed also possibly our online behavior, because all of a sudden, technology and the internet provided a lifeline for us to stay connected with our family and friends, to continue our work that we would usually do in the office space. So I think there was this moment in time where there was no way around anymore around technology, and we basically had to embrace it. And I'm sure some people have been more familiar with this already and others absolutely not. But the question I'm thinking about in the past weeks, basically, and all the things that have happened, and we'll come back to some of the examples later on, is actually this global crisis. Did it finally show us how to live online? So in order to hear a little bit your perspective and maybe get some testimonials, I've prepared 2 poll questions, and I'm just asking if we can put up the first poll question, if that's possible. And you should be able to see it here. So it's just a simple yes and no question. Has the way you use technology changed because of COVID-19? Yes, so we can see it and it should be open. So I invite you guys to respond. And I'm just waiting a minute because there are so many of you here. And if you can't participate in the poll question for some reason, you can also, I guess, use the chat. But I think we are already seeing a bit of a trend here that many of you say yes, that the way you are using technology has changed since the start of the pandemic. Just waiting another minute, but I guess the answer is pretty clear here. Okay, maybe, I don't know if it's possible to still keep this poll question open, but we could already move to the second one, because I think the tendency in the group is quite clear. So many of you say yes, it definitely has changed the way I'm using technology. So the next question is a little bit of a follow-up. In which way has it changed? So here you can also use multiple options. Either you're spending more time online, you're using new platforms and services, you have been more careful of the content you're sharing, you have been more mindful of the different online services you're using, you're being less skeptical towards social media, you make more purchases online, or definitely nothing really has changed. So you can also choose multiple options here, of course. And I guess there is some slight tendency, not as clearly as at the beginning, but I guess the majority is definitely spending more time online, which is absolutely normal, especially when we were still all in very strict confinement, or in many countries, the confinement was more strict than in others. But I guess, as I said before, the internet and technology was basically the only lifeline many people had to stay connected with the outside world. So I guess this is definitely understandable. Using new platforms and services, I think that is also makes sense, because especially for those people who have not teleworked before and all of a sudden had to do this, or many different people using different platforms to stay connected, either for work-related things or for leisure activities. So I think this is also definitely, this makes sense, being more careful of the content I'm sharing and more mindful of the online services I'm using. This is a bit together with making more online purchases. I think this is like a middle tendency. I think this in general depends on the people personally, how active they are. It's very interesting to see that none of you have selected yet being less skeptical towards social media, which means many of you are very positive about social media. This is generally very positive of social media, which is very great. And I'm going to pick this up later on. And for I think one person, nothing has changed, which means either the person has been very active online or not at all, which is absolutely fine. So I think we can probably leave these open for those who have not managed yet to participate. But then I will come back to my presentation, if that's possible. Don't know if we can. Yes, just. Don't know if you can see.
I won't.
Okay.
I won't end
okay. So maybe I think because I think many have answered.
And then
many have answered yet. So maybe we can just close them so you can see fully the present.
Okay, you can go on to your presentation.
Okay, super.
But
thank you. And thank you everyone for participating in those. That's super helpful.
Yes, please, Sabrina, please.
Okay, sorry. I think there's a bit of a time difference, a time lag in speaking, but I hope you can all hear me well. So yeah, thank you so much for participating in the poll question. I think that's very helpful as a kickoff. As I said, obviously, since the pandemic, online safety has become a very hot topic, especially when we talk about issues such as disinformation. But I think online safety always has been a very important topic. I think, as I said, given that the pandemic made us stay at home, there was no way around for us to just embrace technology and engage with technology in order to stay connected, be it for work-related things, but also leisure activities. However, for us, when we started looking into this issue, we definitely thought, okay, it's also a good moment in time to remind ourselves a few key points to keep safe online. And the points I'm presenting now to you, by all means, they are not only applying during a pandemic. I think they are generally important aspects to keep in mind, but I think the current situation is a good occasion to remind ourselves on certain things. So what we found very highly important is to talk with children and young people about the pandemic. And here, not necessarily children and young people don't need to fully understand what is a pandemic, but I think the whole social distancing aspect, which is a very difficult aspect, it's very important to explain to them the reason why all of a sudden they're not able to see their friends anymore in the way they used to, why all of a sudden they cannot go to the kindergarten or they cannot go into school, why all of a sudden mommy puts them in front of a screen and they can see their friends, for example, or if they go out, and this is now as we are getting slowly out of this confinement, when they see their friends, that they should keep a bit of distance, you know, that they should be mindful walking on the streets, and why all the adults all of a sudden are wearing masks in many countries. So I think this is probably very confusing for a lot of children and young people. And this is why it's very important to talk with them about it. And especially, and this was very interesting in the poll question earlier, you could see that obviously we all spend more time online. And this is very, very interesting because way before the pandemic, one of the top questions we always received from parents, but also from teachers, was how many screen time is appropriate, right? But now, as there is no option for students to engage with their friends, to stay connected, to do their homework, to follow school lessons, obviously this is not, screen time is not even a question at the moment, because as I said, especially when we were in strict lockdown, there was no other option than stay connected through the screen. So I think this is like definitely one of the first advice to give. That said, also talking to vulnerable groups, and minors, we consider them as vulnerable groups, but also older people. Here I'm speaking about, for example, grandparents who all of a sudden had to learn how to use technology or different platforms to stay connected with their grandchildren and their families. All of a sudden, they had to use certain services like Skype or FaceTime to still be able to see their families. And these are also not necessarily the generation that, you know, uses technology a lot. So definitely also don't forget the older generation as well in the current situation. And the same as for people with disabilities. I think this is always a very sensitive group, and unfortunately they are always more affected by certain issues, be it hate speech, bullying, so on and so forth. So here again, I think not only talking to children and young people about the pandemic, but also making sure to not exclude vulnerable groups, especially when it comes to the usage of technology. Because unfortunately, during this pandemic, there are also many people who try to take advantage of this, and I'm coming back to this topic later on. Another advice, and we saw this very clearly in the poll question, is to embrace the benefits of social media to help you get through these difficult times. I think generally a lot of people normally are a bit skeptical towards social media platforms, not only when it comes to teaching and learning, but in general. I think social media companies are always very present in the media, and obviously not only through the pandemic, but in generally, there are a lot of issues taking place on these platforms. But I think we have seen in the past weeks also very great things that have happened on social media, that the companies also created very nice initiatives for people to stay in touch, to connect with each other, to participate, to get this community feeling, be it and here again, we'll come back to this later, be it, for example, able to donate to support small businesses, or to participate in live events, yoga classes, concerts, so on and so forth. So the services expanded and provided a lot of opportunity for the users to kind of give this feeling, you know, even if you're like at home with your family or by yourself, there are so many, we are all connected in that sense. And then obviously, and I don't have to tell you this because you eTwinners, you embrace opportunities of online learning long before the pandemic. But I think maybe for your colleagues, for those of you who are the only eTwinner in their school and they usually have difficulties to get their peers on board, I think it's a perfect time. And here again, there is no much other option, or there was no much other option than to embrace the opportunities that online learning has to offer, and then also platforms and communities like eTwinning. Be mindful of online contacts and connections, and you will probably tell me now, okay, of course we know that, but just put yourself into the shoe of a younger person. As I said, these are only reminders we thought are important to foster and to emphasize again on when the pandemic and the lockdown started. By all means, obviously this is important any time you engage online. But as I said, these are reminders, and teenagers especially, or smaller children, they used to forget it, because when we talk with them, something like online and offline world, this is the same thing for them. So I think it's good to remind them that, okay, you're spending more time online now, and you possibly maybe use new applications, and you engage in a different way with your friends. Just be mindful of the contacts and the connections you are making. The same is with keep personal information private. Sounds very, very simple. And again, this is important at any time. Be mindful of the information you are sharing when you register to a new application, when you purchase something online, when you connect to an online tool. If something looks suspicious to you, just don't do it. Try to keep your information private as much as possible. If you're confident sharing something, that is absolutely fine, as long as you're confident with it. But here again, I think another important reminder to share with children and young people. Choose the online tools carefully and think before you share any content. As I also asked you in the poll, I think there are so many online tools out there at the moment that everybody is using for work-related things, but also for leisure activities. All of a sudden, there are new applications, or some applications have been relaunched and have been boosted at the beginning of the lockdown, and all of a sudden everybody was like communicating on a different application. And then you also heard in the news certain applications being a bit more criticized than others. So here again, be mindful of the tools you're using. I think all the tools have their pros and their cons. And when you're using them, just be careful what you're sharing. And maybe a very basic example is that we are now all using these online platforms for meetings. And if you use your camera, just be mindful what is happening in the background. We say this a lot to children and young people, especially when they do like their TikTok videos or something like this in their bedrooms. Just be mindful of what the people can see. So these are just like little things. And then obviously, as long as you're confident and comfortable with what you're sharing, that is absolutely fine. There are some people who are very confident, sharing a lot about their life and a lot about the things they're doing by the time they get up until they go to bed. But obviously, if you don't want to do that, that is absolutely fine. And be aware of disinformation and scams. And I think we have seen this, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. There was so much information about the coronavirus out there. Everybody all of a sudden became an expert in the topic. People have been sharing their opinion on social media. There was a lot of misleading information. There was also a lot of, discrimination at the beginning, the virus appearing in certain parts of the world and then coming to Europe for certain reasons and stuff like this. And then all the statistics, just make sure when you search for information, make sure, and this is especially now that we are going slowly out of the confinement, and there are different steps, different guidelines, and different policies in every country. Make sure that you're using the official sites of your government, for example, or when it comes to more health-related information, the World Health Organization, for example. Just make sure you use like trustworthy sites and not believe just, individual people that are sharing their opinion on social media, which I think at least in my case, at the beginning, that made me feel very like anxious, if you like open your social media and everybody, sharing their opinion about everybody giving different information. I think this can also make people a bit more anxious, in case that was at least in my case. And then also, and I will come back to this later, be aware of scams. As I said, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that take advantage of others during this crisis, be it with, trying to hack into their systems, into their bank accounts, trying to sell them masks, or in certain countries, toilet paper, so on and so forth. So just be, as funny as it sounds for the later example, just be careful, because we're doing so many more things online now. We're purchasing perhaps more things online as we did before. We have to do certain things online now that before we were able to do in person, I don't know, with like your city hall or something like this. Just be aware of the information you receive. Just be mindful with all the emails you're receiving every day. And as said, we'll come back to this in a minute. I want to pick up on some of these things I've listed now. As I said, we find it always very extremely important to talk with children and young people, basically about any online safety related topic, not only the pandemic. But obviously, when we started, looking into the topic and started to collecting some resources, we also felt we need to go to the young people directly and see how are they doing. So we have this network of Better Internet for Kids youth ambassadors. These are youngsters between the age of 13 to 21. They have been involved with their local safer internet centers that we are working with in the different countries, and they have been involved with us on a more European level. So we went to them and we basically asked them how they're doing at the moment, how they're feeling. And we also asked them what kind of resources and materials they are using, be it apps or be it games or be it stuff for school. And we received a lot of feedback of them, and we put their feedback into 2 articles that I also included here on the slides, and they are hyperlinked. So once you receive the slide, you will be able to access the articles. Very, very nice read. So I would encourage you to take a look and maybe also share the articles with your students, because I think sometimes when there is this peer-to-peer exchange, they, reading something that someone in their age group recommended or said, maybe, that could have a bit of a bigger impact. And we also shared these testimonials that you can see here. We also shared them on our social media accounts, which is called Big Youth on Twitter. So you can also find them there. And I think, again, a recommendation would be the articles are in English, to perhaps have a read and then also share them with your students. Then another thing I wanted to pick up on is the staying alert to scams during COVID-19, because I think, as I said, unfortunately, there are people out there that take advantage of the current situation and maybe the vulnerability of some people. So we also published some information around this topic, but again, this information is not new. Because this information applies obviously not only during a pandemic, but especially as the pandemic has showed us maybe a bit more of the flow of scams increased than in the normal time. We thought it's important to point some things out. So as I said before, we are getting tons of emails, and sometimes emails that are supposed to go directly in the junk or the spam folder are not. So when you receive emails, make sure to have a careful look before you just start clicking on, for example, some links or URLs that are included in the email, especially when you receive emails from like local authorities, from your bank, or from other services like your gym or whatever you are subscribed to. Just be careful, have a careful read. If it sounds suspicious to you, before doing anything, maybe just check with your bank, just check with your gym. For example, in my case, in my bank at the beginning of the coronavirus, we received an information from our bank that there is some fraud emails going around, and if we receive any of those, that we should report them. So yeah, just be mindful of this, have a close read. And I know how easy that is, just like skipping through your mails, you know, because we have so many of them. But I think it's very important to be mindful of the emails you're receiving. And then, of course, don't respond to these kind of messages, be it by email or be it by text message. Or, of course, if you receive any suspicious phone calls, especially when people are asking for your personal information or any financial information, this doesn't sound right. Just don't do it. Be mindful about it. And here again, this is also important, you know, to remind your students, to remind your children about, as I said, also possibly the older ones, you know, when they do any in-app purchases, for example, this could be very helpful. Then, of course, as we are not only using one device, we are all at least having 2 or 3 devices around us. Make sure they're always up to date. Make sure you're regularly updating the systems. You do like run through a virus program. And also something I've learned in the past weeks is to make sure to properly close and turn off sometimes your device, because it's in so much use the whole day. And it also sometimes good to just completely turn it off and start it from zero, which I know many people don't do anymore. But I think as we're using this technology at the moment so heavily, I think this is very good to do. And then, as I said, as we are purchasing also many more things, possibly online, especially those who lived in the countries that were under very strict confinement. Obviously, online purchases increased for many different things, which also means, again, this was an occasion for some people to take advantage of. So when you purchase something online with your credit card, just make sure you're sharing the usual information that you're supposed to share and not anything in addition. And also make sure that you're on a trustworthy site. I know sometimes, you know, when we're looking for something, we're just Googling it and then we get, you know, very different offers. Google gives us very different offers. And then maybe there are some price differences in whatever we're looking for. And then we are usually, you know, maybe tending to say, oh, in this online shop, it's actually €5 cheaper than in the other one. But just make sure it's a trustworthy site, and whatever you purchase, you will receive it at the end as well. So I think it's always maybe good to do a bit of research and to maybe also ask around your friends where they're usually purchasing different things, so you're sure that you're on like a trustworthy site as well. If you want to read more about this, we have also published a very comprehensive article around this on the Better Internet for Kids portal. So everything I'm presenting to you now is you can find on betterinternetforkids.eu. Here you have the direct link to this article, and I think it's very useful. It's obviously more technical information, but I think this is definitely the key to stay safe online. As I said, I think the pandemic showed us how we can use technology in a positive way. And just by showing you these screenshots, I think so much has happened in the past weeks, especially when we were under more strict confinement, which I think really gave this community feeling. And no matter if you're by yourself at home or if you're stuck with your family, I think there were so many applications, but also so much action from people that really gave this community feeling, be it, you know, doing yoga classes or any other activities, collective, you know, by seeing your friends doing it, doing the traditional video chat with a couple of people. But for example, many people also celebrated their birthday during the confinement, and people were very creative to make sure that, you know, their beloved ones still have a very special day. Many musicians used Instagram Live or Facebook Live to still do their concerts, because they cannot do their concerts at the moment, but they use the platform. You could connect, you could watch it live, and all of a sudden you were like in a virtual room with thousands of people for many, many hours. We saw also families doing things together, and this is also what I mean, using technology in a positive way. We see that you can do something together with your family and with technology. It does not necessarily mean that, you know, each of you all have to sit behind your own device. You can also do something together. So here again, this is embracing technology. This is embracing social media. And I think besides all the risks that are involved, I think the pandemic really showed so many people using technology in a very, very positive way to give this community feeling, and to give still this feeling of, okay, we are all connected, even though we can't physically see us and we can't physically do things together. But through the screen, I think many different occasions showed us that we still feel we are all connected. And yeah, it basically showed us that you can, you know, even if you can't go to a bar on Saturday night, or you can't go dancing, but you can, you know, use social media, and you can do it virtually with your friends. Everything I've mentioned so far, you can find on the Better Internet for Kids portal. As I said, this was basically our focus over the past weeks, to look into different aspects of how COVID-19 is impacting our lives, how has it changed our online behavior. So we have published a wide variety of different articles around this topic. On the right side, there are some screenshots of some of the articles. So you see that we looked into online learning, emergency remote teaching, dealing with harmful content and illegal content. Unfortunately, we have seen that, you know, child sexual abuse material, the reporting has very, very much increased during the pandemic, and the reporting of harmful content, but also looking into the aspect of well-being, for example, and yeah, also moderating the screen time of children and young people. That obviously has increased, but we still need to be mindful about this. So if you go on betterinternetforkids.eu, on the homepage, you can find many, many articles. As I said, we are updating this website every day. And now that we are also going out of the confinement, and we are in many countries, there is this transition period at the moment. We are also monitoring this. How far has this an impact on our daily lives and our routines we have established? The articles are in English, but I still hope that they will be useful for you. Please take a look. As I said, we are regularly updating and adding new articles around this topic on the website. And then on the left side, where you can see all the country flags, we actually have curated resources from our Safer Internet centers. As some of you maybe know, we are working with organizations together at national level that are experts in the field of online safety, and they are creating resources on various online safety related topics, and especially, of course, also around the topic of COVID-19. So again, if you go on Better Internet for Kids, and if you click on the article that's right on top of the website, you are coming to this page where you can see all the country flags. And if you click on your flag, you will be pointed to resources, resources for teaching, well-being, resources about how to cope with around COVID-19, in your national language. And I think this is probably the most interesting, I guess, for you. These are the countries where the Safer Internet Center and the InSafe network is active. I know eTwinning goes beyond these countries, but as I said, we have many resources also in English on the website. So have a look. We are also updating these resources, these curated resources that we're receiving from the National Safer Internet Center. So please do regularly visit this, because new resources will be added as they come in. So this is Better Internet for Kids. So a lot of resources. Another service I wanted to point you to that we are providing on Better Internet for Kids. And this is not only because of COVID-19. This is generally what we have been offering before, is the so-called Guide to Online Services. And here we are showcasing the most popular applications that are used by children and young people. And we have around 100 at the moment, a lot of social media platforms, a lot of gaming platforms. And we are sharing the most important information people should know about these applications, because it's very important to understand what you're signing up for when you're downloading these applications. And I think terms and conditions, we all know the word, but we are never really reading terms and conditions because it's a lot of information. It's maybe very legally heavy text and very heavy topics. So we are just basically in the habit of accepting everything and downloading the app. But it's still important for us to understand what are we signing up for. So this is basically the idea we're having with the Guide to Online Service. I've put out the example of Instagram for you because that is one of the most popular applications at the moment. So you basically click on the app you're interested in, and then on the right side, a new page opens and it gives you a small description about the application, also latest news around the application. For the very popular apps like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, so on and so forth, we also have this information in national languages, if that is more comfortable for you. Here again, this information is provided by the Safer Internet Centers. It's not only a pure translation, it's also localization. And then at the top, you can also see the minimum age people need to have to be legally on these apps. However, this changed with the new GDPR regulations 2 years ago. So in the EU countries, that might vary. So please have a look. In some countries, people have to be officially older than 13 to be legally on this app. But we all know that young people are finding their ways around it, but still good to know. And then another thing which is super important on the right side, where I put this red circle around, they are also useful support pages, linked to support pages. For example, more information about how to stay safe on the app, more information about how to keep your privacy up to date on these apps, which is very, very important. And we know privacy settings are changing quite rapidly. And then also how you can report on these applications. And I just want to highlight this because I find this extremely important, and I feel sometimes people are not aware enough about this function. And also children and young people should be made more aware of this. You can report if you come across content, for example, be it in writing or in pictures or in music, that you think is harmful for yourself or other users, you can report this. The same if someone is trying to connect with you, but you don't want to connect with this person. You can report this profile, be it someone you absolutely don't know who's trying to connect with you, but then also people you may somehow know, but you don't want to connect with them, someone who, you know, the profile looks suspicious to you. I think this is very, very important that people are aware that this function exists. And if you click on reporting on this link, we have it for most of the apps, you can understand how you do this on the application. I think this guide to online service, it's a very great tool. I think it is also maybe something very interesting to explore with your students, because they're using all these applications. As I said, we have social media applications. We also have a lot of online games, and statistics show us that, for example, bullying and hate speech are majorly increasing, for example, in this whole gaming environment as well. And we all do know how many young people really enjoy to game online, but still we need to be mindful of possible risks. So I think this could be something very interesting to explore with your students. They can click on the different apps, they can read information, you can check with them. I think it could be very interesting, because as I said, this is basically where they spend most of their lives around it. And a lot of these applications, we all agree, are super fun and super useful, but it's still very important to stay safe when using them. And then last but not least, I just wanted to look a bit into the future. As I said, in some countries, confinement, there have been some confinement strategies now, how to transition sort of back to a new reality, which obviously will be different from anything we have explored and lived before, and also looking how the current situation or the past weeks we have been living in will now have a future impact on our lives. And I think online safety, has always been a very important topic, but I think this lockdown and this confinement showed us even that it will become much more high priority for not only for individuals, but also for the governments, for example. As I said, now, everybody had to telework for quite a while. A lot of important decisions had to be taken with people just connecting through online, through technology. So I think definitely online safety will become a higher priority. And then the way online safety is viewed and the advantages that it brings for children and young people may change. As I said at the beginning, I think there was a lot, even more before the lockdown, a lot of skepticism towards, for example, remote teaching, using social media, for example, for teaching and learning and other applications. But I think this pandemic really showed how to use this technology in a very positive way. And also online safety, as I said, definitely is probably on a higher priority list for many people than before, because maybe before the pandemic, not a lot of people maybe have not really engaged so much online as they have been doing now. So for them, it was maybe not that important. They have only maybe done like the minimum, but the pandemic, through the pandemic, they had to adapt to maybe more online engagement. And I think obviously it was also an opportunity to explore the advantages that that the internet and technology brings. I think also we may see in the future, and I think this would be amazing, more discussions at home between children and parents when it comes to using the internet, and maybe also when it comes to the fact of adults, parents or teachers understanding why children and young people maybe love certain online platforms or certain online services. We have seen that, in this pandemic, parents were maybe introduced a bit more thoroughly to some applications like Instagram or TikTok and stuff like this. So we hope that, this confinement and families being at home and everybody connecting during the day or in the evening, be it for leisure time, be it for school, be it for work, maybe would facilitate more discussions between children and young people about online related issues. As I said, with children normally being at school the whole day, we hear a lot from teachers that online safety is the teacher's responsibility, like you have to teach my child about this topic. I don't have time for this. I'm at work all day. And when I come home in the evening, I'm exhausted, which isn't the case yet with whole families be stuck at home. So we do hope that, this lockdown, kind of like facilitated a bit more this dialogue at home when it comes to using technology and certain applications. Obviously, schools are now more familiar with online learning. As I said, I know eTwinning schools are always very special schools, and you have been very familiar with this, but many teachers have not. Many schools have not. In some countries, ministries of education had to adapt many different things also to make sure every child, every household was able to connect. Obviously, I think this was also something positive during this pandemic, that also, like this whole online learning and remote learning was kind of an opportunity as well. Then obviously we will see an increase in child protection issues, as I'd mentioned before. Unfortunately, during lockdown, for example, child sexual abuse material, harmful content online increased massively. We have seen when we work together with the InSafe helplines or the InHope hotlines that reports for illegal content in many countries massively increased through lockdown. So I think obviously the more young people will now spend online, the more obviously we need to make sure they are protected. And then the same obviously for mental health issues. I think the confinement, the lockdown, as I said, in many countries was very strict. And a lot of people are living by themselves. They live maybe in big cities, in small apartments. There was not much room to go out, to see your family, to see your friends. And obviously this has a massive impact on mental health because we are, the human being is a social being. So, we are missing the human contact and physically seeing people. Also obviously has, implementations on our mental health, and also for children and young people. Of course, as I said at the beginning, this is why it's so important to talk with them about the pandemic. As I said, they don't need to fully understand all the medical issues behind COVID-19, but when it comes to the social distancing aspect, I think this is really important to speak with them about this aspect. And then, last but not least, I think, as you have understood from my presentation, the core online safety messages remain. All the reminders that I've mentioned at the beginning, these are rule of thumb. This is common sense. This obviously are not only applicable during a pandemic, but obviously in this current situation, all these online safety messages remain, but they have a different dimension, just simply given the fact that we are spending so much more time online, and that basically still, even if we're now in this transition period, the internet and online services are the only opportunity we are having to staying in touch with our colleagues, for example, or with family and friends who live far away. So just to conclude my presentation today, I think obviously, definitely the COVID-19 situation showed us in a good way how we can live online, how we can take advantages of technologies, how many opportunities there are. But obviously, as usually, everything has a bit of a shadow side. is obviously many issues that also existed before have increased, because unfortunately still there are people out there that they're trying to take advantage of others, especially in a vulnerable situation. So as I said, many of this information was perhaps not new for you, but I hope the resources that I showed you today are helpful. And as I said, please keep an eye on the Better Internet for Kids portal. We are still continuing to monitor the situation, to provide you with more information also now as we're going out of this confinement. There are a lot of resources on the portal in general, also resources in national languages. So I hope you find it useful. I've seen that some of you have also shared the contacts of the National Safer Internet Centers, like the one now in Italy. You can also find these on the Better Internet for Kids portal. We also give you direct links to your Safer Internet Centers within your country. So have a look at the website. I hope you find it useful. And yeah, thanks once again for the invitation. And if there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you very much, Sabrina, for all these important things that you focused on and that we should keep in mind so as to be careful, embrace the benefits and the opportunities that online living has to offer to us, and of course be careful of all the freaky things. That, I would like to share here the link of an answer garden that to invite you to post a word or a sentence there. What are you going to keep from this seminar? What are you going to have in mind from all these important things that Sabrina shared with us today? Write your answer there, and then tomorrow I will share with you the beautiful garden of words that is going to be created. Thank you very much, Sabrina. But do you have all of you some questions, something to ask? Feel free. Yes, feel free to ask the question you have. Maybe we should open again the polls that Sabrina had at the very first beginning. So this is the first one with your answers, and here is the second. With all the results. Yeah, we spend more time online, but as Sabrina said, we should be careful and embrace the benefits and the opportunities. So Sabrina, here are the results. I think that the first option of spending more time online is the one that leads, as we all do this period. And I hope all of
yes,
us
definitely,
use,
definitely. I think that's absolutely.
Okay, since you don't have any other question to Sabrina, Creative Classroom Group and me myself, I would like to thank you all for being here this evening and listen carefully to what Sabrina Vorbau had to share with us in order to be safe online. Thank you very much. The session was recorded, and from tomorrow you will be able to visit the Creative Classroom related page and watch the recording, and of course watch the slides that Sabrina shared with us. Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening and stay safe online.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.